Welcome to Inside Missions, a production of Maranatha Volunteers International, offering an in-depth look at the people, the cultures, and the countries where Maranatha is working. I'm Dustin Com, and today we have a longtime Maranatha volunteer who's served on dozens of projects and become an experienced volunteer mission trip leader, and that is Loretta Spivey. Loretta, welcome to Inside Missions.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy to be here.
Loretta, I want to talk to you about your mission trip leadership experience and how you craft a mission trip experience for volunteers that come on Maranatha projects. But you yourself have a pretty inspirational journey through all of these decades of mission trip leadership and just personal journey that you have that's led you to where you are today. So let's start at the beginning briefly. Where'd you grow up? And tell us the story of how you became the first Seventh-day Adventist in your family.
Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Go Steelers. And how I became the first Adventist in my family is very interesting. I think I was 8 or 9 years old. And the short version is that I started going to an Adventist elementary school in the middle of the school year. And from there, the family that was instrumental in getting me to go to the school.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I think we need to hear the details of how you became an Adventist, though, because that is a pretty interesting story.
Okay, so
this is a podcast. We got time.
We have time. Okay, so I
can't let you just glaze over this cool story.
Okay, I was attending a public school in a bad neighborhood. My mom, although she was a nurse, was really a teacher. And so every day when I came home from school, she had her own homework, even if I didn't have homework in the second grade when I should be coming home to play. But nevertheless, and so as a result of that, when I went to school, I knew what was going on. I guess I was engaged a lot in the learning process. And so the teacher called my mom one day and said, "Your daughter is too enthusiastic in class." I don't know how a teacher can say that. And so that really, really, really upset my mom. I mean,
she considered you a distraction because of some reason you were always engaged. You were always answering questions and.
I'm talkative. I was probably raising my hand all the time.
Yeah, that's crazy though. Anyway.
But for a teacher to say your child is not, she didn't call and say your daughter's talking too much in class.
Yeah.
She didn't say she's distracted in class. Right. She said she's too enthusiastic in class.
Yeah. And here your mom is like super wanting you to be super engaged in the educational process.
Exactly. So that really, really upset her. And she didn't get angry a lot. She wasn't one to yell and scream and holler, but she was very, very, very upset. And at the height of her anger and annoyance with this process, an Adventist literature evangelist came knocking on our door. It was a bad neighborhood. The only reason she engaged him is because he had books. So he had books. She invited him in. In the time, she bought books, my Bible friends' books. But then they started to talk. And he had kids in the Adventist school. The next day, I took my books back to the public school. And the day after that, I enrolled in the Adventist school.
Wow.
And then I spent time with their family. I went to camp meeting. I went to general conference. And that is how I became the first Adventist in my family at 9 years old.
Tell us your first impression of missions. How did you first, become exposed to missions, and what was your idea of it as a child?
The way that I first became exposed to missions is that my joy of going to camp meeting wasn't the meetings, although they were fun. It was the Adventist Book Center.
ABC.
And I had a little budget, and I spent my book budget, on 2 books, and they both happened to be about missionaries. I actually remember the names of the books, Mighty Mary and Dr. Rabbit, Dr. Eric B. Hare. And the Mighty Mary book, I literally read from the time we left camp meeting till the time we got home. By the time I got home, I just closed the book and said, I'm going to do that.
That was it.
That was it. It was really, now it's a big deal, but back then it didn't even seem like a big deal. It was just, I read the book. Our lives had some similarities. I thought it was super cool. And I said I wanted to do
And
it.
it was simple.
It was really simple.
Later on, you're in college and you have your first missionary experience for a long-term student missionary spot in Indonesia. What was that experience like, and how did it compare to that idea of missions that you had as a kid?
Well, first, I think we have to go to the fact that being the first Adventist, this was not in my parents' culture. This was not, if my kids called and said, I want to do a year, I understand what that means.
Right.
My parents had no concept of leaving college for a year to go to Indonesia, which honestly, neither one of them had probably even heard of Indonesia. And so that was the first challenge, is getting them to say yes. I won't go through how we got them to say yes, but they said yes. So it was very different from what I had read in the books. I mean, Mighty Mary was, slaying witch doctors and in small villages in Africa and India, healing people and all that. It was a great experience. We taught English, not the most exciting thing in the world to do, but it was really a way to see that God works in a million different ways. And whether you're in a small village in Africa or whether you're in a big city, Jakarta was a huge city, whether you're in a huge city in Asia, God can still work and God can still use people in many different ways.
Yeah, it is interesting how our journeys, God can use us in so many different ways, whether it is overseas, whether it's in our careers. You end up then graduating from university or college, Oakwood College at that point, probably not university at that point, and start working, have a family. How do you get connected to missions later in life and to Maranatha?
I wanted the youth in my church to do a mission trip. And so I just started doing some digging, and Ultimate Workout came up a couple of times. And so through a series of events, it turned out that this was oh my goodness, I feel so old. This was way back in the Insight days and the Insight magazine days. And I ended up going to Ultimate Workout with a group from my church.
And this is when it was like a shared partnership between Maranatha and Insight?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you were there as a correspondent, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So Maranatha and Insight worked together. And so Insight always sent a person to take pictures and do articles in one individual site. And so that was my job. So I wasn't with my kids, but I was in the country with the kids.
And what was that experience like, being on a mission trip with all these teenagers and having this, what we would call maybe rustic, experience? Which country was it in?
Rustic is a good word. We'll go with that. It was the Dominican Republic. It was Ultimate Workout 13. It was an amazing experience. I had heard a lot about Ultimate Workout, but I immediately understood how special it was and why people loved it and why people came back. My first couple Ultimate Workouts, it was just very interesting just to listen and observe that there would be an 18-year-old who was now becoming a construction leader, a 17-year-old who went to the country early to explore and then go and do Ultimate Workout. So it was very interesting, and I was quiet and I learned a lot, but I understood immediately how special it was.
Why is it so impactful for kids, for volunteers at that age? What is it about that age group that really makes a really transformative impact on kids?
I think because in most situations, it's theirs. If they come from a church, more than likely that church doesn't necessarily appreciate their style of music, doesn't appreciate them coming to church in jeans and flip-flops, doesn't appreciate what they as youth bring to the table. Not all churches, but in many cases. So you go to Ultimate Workout, and the experience is not tailored for me. The experience is tailored for 14 to 18-year-olds. And I think that they grab onto that. I think they appreciate it. And I think that it gives them the room and the space to really see God in a way that maybe they just don't get to do at home.
It's not an easy project, Ultimate Workout.
That's a nice way of saying it.
What captivated you about it? What do you think captivates people about this experience, even though it's not easy? It's hard, and yet people come back year after year, you included.
I think early on it was having the opportunity to be a part of watching these kids, young people, see God for themselves. And then in the early days, again, having the opportunity to document that, to photograph it, to write about it. That's one of the things that made me keep wanting to go. And the truth is, because of the way that God works, it's very rare that you can go and give and not receive yourself. It's very rare. There's always a philosophical argument about who's getting the most out of this, right? Am I, or are the people I'm serving? And so as much as I, speaking for those days, enjoyed watching and facilitating the participants getting something, it also did something for me.
When did you realize that you really enjoyed, like, were you already drawn to youth before? It sounds like you were involved in your church's youth group, but like, when did you really realize, like, man, I really love seeing this transformation that these kids are receiving on this mission trip? Like, did someone do that for you when you were a kid, and it was like a sort of a model that had been shown for you by others in your past, or?
It was both. My church had a very active youth ministry. I could tell stories about that. But so I was primed for having that expectation that somebody should have something for them to do. We were never bored. I mean, I know I sound like an old lady, and I don't know that we should do now what we did back then. I just think we should do something. We should provide something. So because, remember, from 9 years old, I knew I was going to do this, right? So because of that history, because of the foundation that had been laid for me for something to do, and because I'm watching it, I'm seeing the change right before my eyes that is happening. So I don't know that it clicked. I think it just kind of happened. I don't think there was any one time at Ultimate Workout that I said, okay, I'm going to do this for the next 20 or 30 years, whatever the case may be. It grabbed me as it grabbed so many people, and here I am.
You said your first one was Ultimate Workout 13.
13.
And we were together in the DR 20 years later. I don't know if you, in the moment, like, connected that, but that was your 20-year kind of anniversary. You were back in the same country, Ultimate Workout 33.
And what's very interesting about that, the music leader for Ultimate Workout 23 was Loretta Spivey, who was not born.
33, yes, 33.
33, yeah, right? Yeah. 33.
Her son.
Who was not born.
Yeah.
When I was on my first Ultimate Workout.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, that makes me ask the question of, like, over that time, that's a long time. Like,
it's a long time.
How did Ultimate Workout impact you? Like, how did you grow from Ultimate Workout? Because it is about the teenagers, but we have a really amazing group of committed adult volunteer leaders that go on this trip year after year after year, and you guys have become a really tight-knit group. How has it made you a better person?
I think that what Ultimate Workout initially did for me was reminded me that, this is going to sound crazy, but I don't need a new set of dishes. It just, that initially, early on, the yearly trip was just a reminder that the simpler the better. I don't need a closet full of shoes. I just, and every year that would just be my little reminder, like, okay, just take it back a notch. Look what these people have. So that was the first thing. And just a reminder that there's more to life, and more is sometimes less. Then the other thing was just, again, watching the transformation of the participants and being a part of that. And then you mentioned the staff. it's really true that you become a family. And it's very strange because you only see these people once a year, twice if you happen to do site visit.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks. You know, maybe a little more, you know, if you stay a little extra, come early to do some work. But during that time, it's so intense that they really do become family. It's not fake, it's not trite. They really become, they see what you're worst. Right? I was joking with Danny just a minute ago. This is the first time I've seen him with normal clothes on. Right? I've seen him in America because we were together in Arizona, but it's the first time I've seen him in normal circumstances. Yeah. But I love him, and we have a great relationship. Yeah. And it's the same for so many people. So
I feel the same with our staff around the world, because we'll go on a media trip to, you know, produce an episode for our TV show or whatever, and we're on the road with them, you know, like all day, and we might be staying in a remote village. We might be, and then sometimes we get to share a meal with their family, and their life is in our hands. And it's a bond that, even though we're only there for 10 days or whatever, like you get close to somebody. Yeah. On that kind of trip. Yeah.
So let me just say one other thing. As the years went on, I don't even know the word. My blessing comes more indirectly now. Honestly, I don't do any trip to go and feed the villagers or build a church, because now it's an exponent. If I take 50 people, then 50 people can get that thing that I'm getting by myself. So I don't do it anymore for the joy that I get from serving those individual people. I do it now for the joy that I get from giving my entire group the opportunity to do something like this.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So even for Ultimate
like
Workout, it's a deeper but exponential level, because if I go and do it for myself, I get the blessing. But if I give 50 people an opportunity, or 20 people an opportunity, then it's 20 instead of just one.
Yeah.
So for me now, my joy is very rarely direct contact with the community, direct contact with, even though I do lay a block every year just to prove that I still got it. But that's not my joy. My joy is providing that opportunity and giving people an opportunity to have that amazing experience.
So do you know off the top of your head how many Ultimate Workouts you've done?
No.
Okay.
But you can only subtract 2.
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. What the subtraction. Why would she have missed a couple of Ultimate Workouts? Before we leave Ultimate Workout,
Sure.
I wanted to ask, of all those that you've served on, which has been maybe the toughest, if you could narrow it down, or maybe several? Well, like really, because we kind of hinted at it being a difficult, challenging trip, but what are some of the factors, and maybe a specific trip that you can remember that was particularly, difficult?
Well, it's very surprising that I did a second one, because my first one was very difficult. My first one, we had rats above our heads.
Nice.
We had our showers were, what do you call that? Black, like heavy black plastic.
Okay.
That's what you call it. Heavy black plastic. Okay. That with I guess 2x4s up against a building. That was it. That was it. The main street was behind us, and the school building was in front of us. That was it. I survived that. It was very weird being in a shower and hearing a male voice right there because they were just showers. I mean, they were well covered. They were as clean as could be, but that was it. And it was very hot. And the mosquitoes that year, oh my goodness. They all called each other and said, hey, Loretta is here. Let's have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack.
And the thing that, if you've never been on a project before, like you're working hard during the day, you're on your feet all day. And so, people can endure a lot, and then they get back to their house at night or whatever. Throughout your day, you get a nice sleep and a nice warm, if it's cold outside, or a nice cool, air conditioned house, if it's hot in the summer. You're not necessarily getting that you're probably never getting that.
You're not getting that. They're not necessarily. You're not getting that. You come back and it's just as rough.
It's rough during the day, and then it's tough at night.
Correct.
Sleep deprived.
Correct.
All of that.
Correct.
There's been some trips. I know when we were together in Kenya on Ultimate Workout 29 at the Kiutini School, it was just windy and there was dust everywhere. There was dust in our, stuff in our food. I mean, you couldn't get away from it.
Yeah.
You've led trips, where COVID was a big issue, a lot of protocols and regulations and just challenges because of that. I mean, you guys have seen a lot.
Yeah. Rain has been an issue. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's been anything that hasn't been an issue. There was a volcano one year in Ecuador.
I don't know if I heard about that.
Yeah, there was a volcano one year. We've had torrential downpours. We've had heat.
I mean, it was freezing last year in Peru.
I'll take the heat over the cold any day, even though the Dominican Republic was so hot. Yeah, I felt humidity. Like God was saying, you better live your life right.
Do it.
Because if you can't stand this Dominican Republic heat, you're not going to be able to stand any other heat. But for me, I take the heat over the cold any day. And last year was just, it was so cold.
And what was the elevation? You guys were at like 10 or 12?
Oh, I think it was like 12. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really,
cold.
really.
In the Andes Mountains.
It's cold and the air is thin. And yet, even while we're there that year, we know that we're coming back the next year.
That's what I was literally going to ask. And yet, people keep coming back every single year. That team, no matter what happens, no matter what they have to endure, what they have to problem solve, or fires they have to put out during that project, the kids may have not great accommodations. They might be, struggling during the project, emotionally, physically, whatever. A lot of them have never had to work that hard, or they've, never they've never seen that much adversity, and yet they come back. Why?
So, funny story. One year, I believe it was Ecuador, I was the site spiritual leader at that time, and maybe still doing double duty for Insight. Can't remember the exact year. And there was a girl there that was really, really sick. And I was with her, and she was, I've never been this sick in my life. I can't believe it. I've never been this sick in my life. I can't wait to come back next year. No lie. It was all in the same breath. And even in her sickness, I just had to laugh. I had to laugh because the good always outweighs the bad. The good of seeing God and hearing God and experiencing God for yourself, or for the staff, facilitating that and watching someone else, having those conversations with the kids, outweighs the cold. Lord help me for saying that, but it at least outweighs the heat, and outweighs all the other bad things that happen, because to be able to see and experience God in such a real way is really worth any adversity that you can have. And I think it's the same for the participants. And so we keep doing it until we can't.
Well, hopefully you won't have to worry about cold this summer in Paraguay. I think hopefully should be all right.
I've been checking the weather. It looks a little milder than last year. Yeah.
Okay, so you referenced this earlier. You're going on mission trips with Maranatha all the time, years and years of mission trips, and then there was a time where you didn't go on Maranatha mission trips. So what happened?
Well, the first time my son was born, I don't think that's the one you're talking about. The next time in 2011, October of 2011, I got really sick. Nobody really knew what it was, but I ended up paralyzed from the neck down. And other than the time that the year that my son was born, that's the other ultimate workout that I missed.
And was this like a slow progression to being paralyzed from the neck down, or?
A couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, I was weak. I was tingly. I got some treatment. They thought I was good. And next thing you know, I was home. I'd been in the hospital 2 weeks. I went home. They said, you'll get stronger and stronger from this point. I got weaker and weaker. By the time it was time to go back to the hospital, I had to go on my bottom like a 2-year-old does to go down the stairs. I literally couldn't even walk down the stairs in my house.
That'd be scary.
Very, very. There's a lot there, so you have to ask me.
The doctors had no real answers, or did they have some guesses?
So initially, which was just God, when I first went to the hospital, I went to a small community hospital where I lived in the suburbs, and this doctor walked in and he named it immediately, and they treated that, and that's when I went home and I went back. Turns out it was the chronic version of that, not just that thing. And so
chronic inflammatory
demyelinating polyneuropathy, pretty good. Yeah. Which is what I call the evil cousin to what some people know as Guillain-Barré. And so eventually, well, I think this part is really important. When I was home, as clearly as I'm talking to you right now, the Lord said to me, this is not over, but it's going to be okay. As clearly as I'm talking to you right now. So of course that gave me great peace of mind, but as it progressed, right? So after that, I went back to the hospital. After that, the diagnosis came. And after that, they said, let me get it right. Yeah, so right there, after the diagnosis, I said to God, because it's going to be okay, Kimmy, in a lot of things. I mean, honestly, people die and we say they're resting now. They're no longer in peace. So in pain. So I'm like, God, I have a daughter getting ready to graduate from high school. The baby is in first grade. My other daughter's getting ready to get married.
Oh my goodness.
Like, God, when am I going to be okay? What is okay and when am I going to be? And he said, you're asking the wrong question. The question is, do you trust me? That's what I said. Oh my goodness. That's exactly what I said. And I want to say, because at this point, I have all these ultimate workouts under my belt. I have, I'm in my 40s. I have a rich experience of being with God. So I want to say, Dustin, that I said, of course, God, I trust you. But it's a funny thing. When the pastor says at the end of the sermon, do you trust God? Generally, you say, yes, I trust God. But when you're looking, and on that side is the healing that you want, and on that side is you might be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, all of a sudden, it's not so easy to say, yes, God, I trust you. So I wrestled and I talked to people and I thought and I prayed and I cried. But eventually I said, yes, God, I trust you. Now, this was supposed to be like a made-for-TV movie. I was supposed to say, yes, God, I trust you. And like Abraham, right? There was going to be a ram in the thicket, and then I was going to get up and walk. I said, yes, God, I trust you. And then all the medical professionals said, we need to have a meeting. When they all want to meet with you, it's never good. And when they met with us, they said, this is the diagnosis, and this is the way it's going to play out. You need to prepare to be in a wheelchair. Here's some information.
For the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life.
Wow.
Here's some information on how to get your car fixed so you can still drive. Here's some information on how to get a ramp and some things in your house.
So to them, it was sealed. The
deal was sealed. It was done. And I literally said to them, but am I going to be able to do mission trips? And am I going to be able to run? And they said, well, not in the same way you do now. And then they thought, I'm sure they thought something was really wrong with me.
She doesn't understand.
She doesn't understand. But I understood. But I couldn't, I'm still trusting God for a miracle. I couldn't figure out how to trust God for the miracle that he was going to heal me and prepare myself to live in a wheelchair. It's
incongruent. I mean,
it didn't work for me. So I said to my husband, listen, you can listen to them and talk to them and whatever, but I'm going to be over here. And he said, oh, no. I'm with you. Whatever you're saying, wow. I'm with you. So not. So now it's both of us.
Wow.
Ignoring these people. I'm not going to any of the meetings about how to get my house fixed up. I'm running from the
There was air quotes there, by the way, if you're just listening to the audio.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm running from the psychiatrist that's there. He's a cool guy, right? He's in a wheelchair and he drives a sports car. He plays basketball. He's a cool guy. So he's supposed to be there helping me navigate. Every time I see him, I go to the bathroom, which is hilarious because I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself, but I just went in the door to hide from him because he wasn't going to come in there. So yeah, I could not do both. And so I chose to. Now, if God would have said, Loretta, this is the way it's going to be, I wouldn't have liked it, but I would have gone with it. But it wasn't God talking. It was these people talking. So I wasn't willing to listen to them. So do you want me to keep going?
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Yeah,
I've heard the story, but I still on the edge of my seat.
There's so much, but eventually I went home. No, I didn't go home. I went to a nursing home. Still not walking, still needing physical therapy, still needing lots of help. Well, it's an insurance game. I got to a certain point and then I went home, still not walking. My bedroom was upstairs, so we just had to make my office into a little hospital room, basically. Fast forward, I'm there. My daughter's getting ready to graduate. It's all still happening, right? My daughter's getting ready to graduate. My other daughter's getting ready to get married. And this pastor called me. And he had called me a couple of times during the course of my illness. And funny thing is, every time he called me, something would change physically. It could be something very small. Like he would call and pray with me, and then maybe the next day I could open a water bottle, which was, trust me, I called everybody when I could open a water bottle. It was a big deal. Or he would call and I could do some other thing. So he calls me this day, and I'm home now, and he says, you need to walk around your house and praise the Lord. And I was like, dude, yeah, I agree. I would love to do that. But right now, it's me in this wheelchair. He prayed. The next day, I wake up, and I know that I can walk. I know this sounds weird, but I promise you this is what happened. God did not say, Loretta, you can walk. I just, in my head, know that I can walk. The problem is that nobody's home. And I was always very careful because I don't want an injury on top of all this other stuff that's going on. But I know that I can walk. So I sit up on my bed, which was, I could do that much by that. So that wasn't anything new.
And this is over the course of weeks or
from
months from when
when I first got sick?
Well, I'm thinking from when the doctor said you're not going to walk again.
So from when the doctor said I am not going to walk again, that was probably January, February. And it's June, so 6 months. So I sit up on the side of my bed. I push the wheelchair to one side. I push the walker.
She's committed here.
Well, he said I could walk. I mean, I said I could walk, so I don't need that stuff, right? But I need it out of my way. Yeah. I push the wheelchair to one side. I push the walker to the other side. And I stand up.
Would you have done that if he hadn't called?
It depends on if I woke up thinking I can
you
walk.
Had that confidence or not.
Yeah. And at that time, though, I didn't connect the two. I just woke up saying, I can walk. So I pushed those things and I stood up. It was shaky. It was shaky. I wish we were on, anyway, it was shaky. But I walked the circle of my house.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that was great. So I watched and I did it again. Then I called my best friend and I was like, you won't believe what I'm doing right now. And she said, what? And I said, I'm walking. I walked.
Painful?
No, just awkward. Just unsteady. That's the word. Just a little unsteady. My husband came home. Mind you, there's 4 kids at home right now. He's trying to manage a job and 4 kids. So he was always multitasking. He lived at the hospital with me. I mean, he was always there. But he came home and I said, I need to talk to you. And it was interesting because this particular time, he was just like, yes. Like 100% attention. And so I told him. And he was like, are you serious? I said, yeah, you want to see? And so I got up and I walked again. And there's a video, and that's him taking the video and sending it, of course, to everyone, because that was the first time in forever that I had walked by myself.
How did you trust in God throughout this whole ordeal? I mean, and did your experience, on all these mission trips and just lifetime of serving and being in the mission field, I mean, did any of that experience with God like inform your, mindset throughout this whole
All
thing?
of it. All of it did. The fact of the matter is, my first mission trips, I shouldn't have been able to go on either. Not because I was physically sick, but because my life circumstances were not such that a college student that was barely able to pay for college was going to be able to go and do a trip. So my first mission trip shouldn't have happened either. So all of those experiences, at one point, I really studied the character of God, which I thought I was doing just because I was interested. But in hindsight, it turns out that God was trying to prepare me and show me some things, right? So I think that all of our life experiences get us ready for the next one.
So you had seen evidence over the years, different things happening that,
I had seen evidence, but Dustin, I don't want this to sound like I had some great, like it was about me and my mind and my attitude. Because really, when I was in the hospital for 3 months, we had a party. And the party was, I've been in the hospital for 3 months and I've not lost my mind. And so I can say God just kept my mind. I mean, during the course of that time, I can literally think of, I always say 3, even though I can't really think of 3, but there were probably 3 that I was really discouraged. I was scared a lot. And God just kept my mind. So all of those collective experiences throughout the years just really, at that point, just helped me to see that God is going to do this. And if he says no, I mean, there was a time I envisioned myself going to speak places, saying to them, well, I'm in a wheelchair, right? So you're going to have to, is that the way it's going to shake out, right? You're going to have to make sure that your church is accessible for that. So I don't think there was really anything about me. I don't think I had any great faith I had great favor. That's what I had. I had, for whatever reason, God just picked me. And I'll tell you something, I never one time asked God, why did I get sick? Once a week, I still ask, why did I get better? Because there are so many people who have this thing that are not doing anything near, expending anywhere near the amount of energy that I expend.
So at what point did you, so when you started walking, you said, all right, we're going on a mission trip soon? Or at what point did you say, okay, I think I could do another mission trip?
The next year.
Yeah. Wow. And
that was June. I couldn't go in July.
Yeah.
But the next July, I was on
that was the ultimate workout. Wow. You eventually start leading projects that are not ultimate workout as well.
Yeah.
So you've had a lot of experience leading Maranatha mission trips and doing preparation, site visits, planning, kind of preparing the framework in which volunteers are going to have this experience. What is your goal for Maranatha volunteers when they come on a project that you're leading?
So let me say first, because it connects. My first open team was the 5-year celebration of me coming back to mission trips, of my illness. My goal is, most simply stated, for volunteers to see God in a way that maybe they haven't before, to see him closer and maybe through a different lens. That's always my big picture goal.
And how do you set up a mission trip to accomplish those goals? What is the framework that you establish, or the research or the preparations in advance that you do to prepare for that?
So I grew up in mission trips under Steve Case and Vicki Weedman. Both of them are extremely organized. And I don't know that I could say exactly why they're organized, but for me, being organized and doing as much as you can up front provides space to be present on the trip, right? If the food and the transportation and all these things and the excursion are laid out already, then I have time to engage with the volunteers. Then I have time to talk to somebody that's 100% different than me and has completely different views and see how we can come together. But if I'm running around trying to do this and trying to do that, and oh my goodness, I forgot that, and because things are going to come up, right? Things are going to come up. So I think the first thing is to really be organized and have as much laid out and planned as you can. The other thing is, for me, I always have a theme, a spiritual theme for my trips, because it keeps me focused and it gives them something to hang their experience on. It's been God is greater than our highs and lows, or faith over fear. It seems, which is so interesting because it started way back in last fall, that this year's theme is Ubuntu, which means we're in this together. Oh my goodness.
Made famous in the basketball world by the Boston Celtics.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know.
Yeah.
Didn't know.
Doc Rivers, coach.
Oh yeah, I did read about that. So having something for them to hang their spiritual hat on is important for me. Yeah, I think those are probably the two biggest ones.
And what is the biggest difference between leading a project for teenagers versus leading a project for, could be all ages, right? And is the preparation any different?
The difference is when you lead an open team or a multiple group project, you generally get to sleep at night.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. My first open team at 9 o'clock, I was like,
sure, there's not something I need to be doing?
Yeah. So, and teenagers have a lot of emotional energy that doesn't really always present itself in that much intensity and quantity on, say, an open team or a multiple group, even though you have a lot of teenagers there. So I would say that's the major difference. But I grew up, right? Air quotes again. I grew up in Ultimate Workout. And so I think I probably lead my open teams in a similar way, right? Okay, worship is really important on all of my trips. On my open team, my multiple group, we have solid morning worship. We have solid evening worship. We have theme. We have activities throughout the day to keep pointing you in that direction. I don't know that if I wouldn't have started out in Ultimate Workout, if that would be the same, because I just know how important that is.
Why is worship so important?
On a mission trip.
Yeah, on a mission trip.
Because you have people coming from all different places, all different physical places, all different geographical places, all different emotional and spiritual places. Worship gives you an opportunity to do two things: to recognize and celebrate those differences, and also an opportunity to come together and have that common, we're in this together, have that common faith over fear. What does that mean here? What does that mean when you go home? So I don't really know, and different people are different. I'm not judging. I just don't know how you can do a mission trip and not have the worship experience as a key experience.
It's almost kind of a debrief session too after a full day, right?
It is often a get ready for this and a debrief session at the end of the day. Yeah. Absolutely.
What is one thing that you wish all volunteers could learn when serving on a mission trip?
to shift their paradigm. It's not intentional, but we look at everything through our own lenses. And the world is different. Driving on the right side or left side is not right or wrong. It's just the side they drive on. Eating with your hands is not right or wrong. It's just the way that they eat. There's so many. I could give you 100 things, but I think just being willing to step back and say, yes, this is my way, but there's another way. And this particular culture and community does it another way.
You know, we were talking about this before. Volunteers, they bring a lot to a mission trip. They really do serve, and they bless a community. But you've also talked about the importance of allowing volunteers the opportunity to see how they can learn from the community that they're serving. How do you go about that?
I don't intentionally set up any, okay, this is what you're going to learn from this community.
Yeah.
But when there's an opportunity, I will certainly mention it. For example, if someone says, oh, they're driving on the wrong side of the road, I'll say, why is it the wrong side of the road? And eventually they get to, oh, it's not really the wrong side. It's just not the side that I drive on. So it's a mission trip. You're in a foreign country with anywhere from a small group, 15, to a larger group, 75, 80, 100 people, most of whom you don't know. There are always opportunities to grow and to learn. And so I just keep my eyes open for opportunities to share and to ask questions and to make observations more than saying, okay, you're going to learn
We're going to go
this.
experience this, from the community.
But sometimes I do warn them. You know, we have in the spectrum people who are super conservative and super liberal, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll warn you, okay, this community, they wear a lot of jewelry, right? They're from this particular tribe. They may be slightly clad or whatever the case may be. So there are times that I give them warnings with the encouragement to be open.
Yeah. I think one of the things I hear a lot from volunteers is just learning how to be joyful in any circumstance, and they meet people that are joyful in the circumstance that they're in. And that's one of the, I think you hear that constantly from volunteers. It's one of the great things that they,
I never have to teach you that. They just get that.
Yeah.
That's an easy one.
Yeah. Okay, a couple more questions.
Sure,
If you're
sure.
good. Of course, we're only scraping the surface of all your experiences and everything you have to share, I'm sure, but this is a good starting point.
Sure.
When you think back through all of the projects that you've led with Maranatha, how has all those experiences improved how have you grown as a person? How have you grown?
I think that, believe it or not, I grow and learn on every single trip. I think maybe the biggest one is having the attitude that I work and organize and plan as if it's all on me. And then I pray like it's all on God. And I think that helps me when, Dustin, anything can happen. We were going to go to a village in Kenya, and it was all planned. I sent the team out to check the roads. Everything was fine. A downpour came, and now we can't go. Just to be able to navigate and work through those things without freaking out and without the sky is falling kind of attitude.
That's a great way to put it. Prepare as if you're on your own, but know that God is with you.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing is I've formed some great relationships with people that honestly in the United States I probably wouldn't. There are so many people who come on the trips who are atheists, who don't believe in God, who don't like Adventists, who don't like Adventism, but they're there because they want to serve. And I think that just having an open mind and looking at people as, this is a thing that we learn too. We all want the same thing. It doesn't matter our color, our political party, our country of origin. We legit all want exactly the same thing. And I think over the years, I've learned that more and more, that girls at Caggiato, they think boys are cute. Boys at Chiotini, they think girls are cute. Yeah. It's the same. That's it. The more I see, the more I realize we're all the same. We're really exactly all the same.
Beautiful. Last question here. How, and you kind of already touched on it, so maybe unless you think of something else, you've already answered this, but how have you seen God at work through all of your mission trips, whether that's a major theme or specific examples?
I think we're all the same is one of them, but I've seen specifics too. I mean, I've seen miracles. And that's why we all keep going, because it's an opportunity to see God in a way that you wouldn't. I'll tell you this story and then I guess we'll be done.
We can keep going.
Dominican Republic, I don't remember. I'm bad at remembering the numbers. But Dominican Republic, we did an excursion. And we had sandwiches for the day. So we got on buses, went to the beach. Then we took these little boats out to this island and we snorkeled and blah, 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 blah. Well, when it's time to have lunch, an entire cooler of sandwiches is missing. 40 to be exact. So there's blame, they're blaming the little captains of the boat and, blaming this, that. But anyway, we worked it out. As you know, there's so much food on the mission trip that really, if you miss a sandwich at lunchtime, you'll be all right. There's going to be dinner. So a few adults, few people, skipped and it was fine. So we get back and, you clean up and whatever the case may be. The next morning, a group gets ready to go out for outreach. And what did they see on the bus but a cooler of sandwiches? 40. So this group decides, this group that has 80 plus kids in their VBS, that they're going to tell the story of the loaves and the fishes, right? It just so happens that there's no older adults in this group. I think the oldest person in that particular group was like 21, 22. So now in my mind, there's 40 sandwiches. You're going to tell the story. You're going to cut the sandwiches in half. There's going to be 80 sandwiches. In Jesus' name, amen. No. These kids decide they're not cutting the sandwiches. They're going to tell the story and see what happens. How many kids did I say were in this VBS? 80 or more. They tell the story. I see you looking at me. I wish you guys could see how Dustin is looking at me right now.
I got my arms crossed. I am
he's
skeptical here.
Because you're skeptical. They tell the story and they start passing out the sandwiches. There are 40 sandwiches. There's more than 80 kids and every kid gets a sandwich. Every kid gets a sandwich, right? In addition to that, every kid getting a sandwich, there are 12 sandwiches left, right? Now, my son happened to be in this group. So I say to him, son, what'd you do with the extra sandwiches? And he didn't miss a beat because he's a teenage boy. He said, we ate them. But I can tell you something. That story wouldn't happen in America because that exact same son of mine would have called me and said, hey, Mom, there's 80 kids at VBS. Can you run by Subway and get us some more sandwiches? Can you make us some more sandwiches? I'm so grateful there were no adults there because we all would have made those kids cut the sandwiches. Right? We would have ruined the opportunity for that miracle story to take place. There are still people who go on UW who were there. And so watching God do what people say, oh, you can serve in the United States. It's true. It's very true. And I think people should serve everywhere. But there are things that happen in these countries when there's no fail safe. That's when God can do his work. I could spend another however long we've spent telling you stories like that. That's why we keep going. because you can see God work in a way in pick the country. Not that he can't work in the United States, but that our resources won't allow him to work in the United States. Really. Why stress about 40 sandwiches? Just go to the store and get some more. There's not even a potential for a miracle there because I'm just going to get more. I'm just going to go make more. They'll be a little late, but I'll whip them up. So being able to give God room to move in those scenarios and situations is what keeps me going back and keeps me encouraging more. So why would that's it. I could have that story by myself, or I could be in a situation where I'm leading 50 people to have that experience. I'm going for the 50. Amazing.
Well, Loretta, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story and for all the years of leadership, leading all these Maranatha mission trips, and especially today for being on Inside Missions.
My pleasure.
And if you have been enjoying any of our episodes, maybe this episode with Loretta, please share our podcast. It helps it grow and helps more people get involved with the mission of Maranatha.